Greetings. Welcome to the Dr. J Vlog series. It's Sunday, February 2nd, 2025. Happy Groundhog's Day. On Sundays, we look at the purpose and meaning of life, and we're going to do something a little bit different today, at least with respect to Sundays. I'm going to be doing actually an analysis video. I'll explain. So, back in years ago, some of you may recall from my Friday vlog that I'd had an incident with my father, pretty serious one. I didn't follow up in that particular vlog. My father and I did reconcile, though, happily. And I ended up actually living with my father briefly, periodically, on a couple of occasions, usually in transition or, from university or different life stages. But he ended up then moving away as well and living on the Chesapeake Bay, which I'll return to in just a moment. But the first time I was back from university, I was staying with my father, and it was just my father and I. And this is back in early or in spring of 1981. And one morning, he actually had a heart attack, and I came and I attended to him and didn't call 911. I don't know. I guess this is just the way my 19-year-old brain was thinking. But I drove him quickly, rushed him to the hospital. So, I brought my father, who'd had this heart attack, to the hospital, and he survived. And turns out he had to have a double bypass surgery. So, all good news in that sense. He survived, he came home, continued to live his life, etc. Several years later, then, now in 1988, I started my academic career as a professor, really assistant professor, but I was really an instructor. I didn't have my PhD yet, but I was working in my first full-time teaching job at James Madison University. This was the fall of 1988. My father was so proud of that fact, by the way. It was a Sunday morning, and I decided to give him a call. I typically called him about once a week, and usually on Sundays. And in this particular Sunday morning, I remember quite well, I called him to catch up, but I also had a couple of crossword puzzle clues that I needed help on. He was quite the expert crossword puzzler. And so we talked a little bit about that, and that was always fun. And then we were just catching up on this and that. And at some point, after talking with him for several minutes, he stopped talking. It seemed like he couldn't talk. He was struggling. And I said, Dad, what's wrong with you? And finally, he managed to say, no, nothing. I'm okay. Something along those lines. And I said, Dad, well, you don't sound okay. And so I'm going to call the neighbor and have them come check on you. Oh, okay. So we just hung up. There's no I love yous or anything, of that nature. But I did, excuse me, I actually called my mother first because my parents had split up, a decade earlier. And she thought it was nothing or that I was overreacting. And so, anyway, we decided to call the neighbor and have the neighbor come check on him, which we did. And the neighbor got there probably, a neighbor actually was one of his good friends, his close friends, and got there within 10, 15 minutes to check on my father. When he came in, he found him, and my father had passed. So it looks like what had happened is that he perhaps had stood up from the bed. He was talking to me and just collapsed right away. There was a bottle on the stand or on his shelves across on the other side of the bedroom, and it had nitroglycerin. So that was a prophylactic protective measure whereby you could stick it under your tongue and so forth if you felt the chest pains. So we knew that he died of a massive heart attack. And yeah, so that was it. So the point being that I was actually speaking with my father. This is the true story at that moment where he started to struggle and suffer that second, in this case, fatal heart attack. So basically, my father died while I was speaking to him on the phone. Um, so, needless to say, that was quite a powerful experience, and not right away. So that was actually November 20th, 1988. That's the day that my father died. We had the funeral and so forth. That was the first time I had to miss a class of teaching as well, because obviously to attend the funeral. The reason that that's relevant to today's vlog is not just of his passing. There's obvious relevance there in terms of making sense out of the loss of loved ones. What does that mean? What are the impacts? So that's an important issue that we all have to deal with from time to time, and we'll have to deal with throughout our lives. And in this particular case, I wrote a song, not right away. I didn't start it until January of 1989, but it came fairly quickly. And so I wrote this song called The Old Man by the Sea. And that's what he used to call himself because he lived on the Chesapeake Bay and he referred to himself as the Old Man by the Sea. This is also the first song that I felt was a really excellent song that I'd written. And I don't mean that to sound like bragging. I've written lots of songs, mostly crappy songs. A few that I thought were pretty good, a couple that I'd even recorded with a friend of mine years earlier. But I wasn't thinking about recording anything like this. I was just writing the song. It was inspired, obviously, by the events surrounding my father's passing. And I do remember thinking, wow, this is just a really good song. It's really powerful. And obviously, it has a lot of personal significance. So that's coloring my judgment. So what I thought I'd do is share with you that song. It did end up being it's the oldest song written 35 years previous to my debut album, 62 Since 62. So it's the very oldest song on the album. It's the first song on side two, because there's a theme to side one and a theme to side two. And what I thought I'd do is just do a bit of an analysis video, share with you the song and some of my memories and reflections and the sense making endeavor that goes along with this particular song. So without further ado, let us dive into this particular song. It's called The Old Man by the Sea.
Winter's approaching, the cold on the way, building a fire in the shadows of the day. First time in ages on the Chesapeake Bay that the mist on the water had been burned away. Grass finished growing, trees emptied their leaves, standing there listening to the widow who grieves. Old friends and neighbors had offered a hand to deal with the changes no one had planned.
All right, a quick stop here. So I'm setting the scene there, obviously, recounting the season in which all of this took place. As I say, this is an almost literal reconstruction of what was sort of going on that fateful day, as it were. The song itself, of course, is written in a kind of a finger-picking acoustic guitar. That's what you're hearing me play. You're also hearing, the astute observer that you are, the bass guitar. That's actually being played by Caleb or CX Violet. And we talked about that, and I told him what I wanted there was a gentle walking bass. A walking bass is a bass that moves up and down the different key signatures and sounds like it's, again, there's like movement. But I didn't want it to be a really dramatic movement. I wanted it to be a gentle, quiet walk, shall we say. So that's what he's uh, produced. So yeah, at this point, you've just heard the acoustic guitar and and Caleb's bass playing, and now we're heading into the chorus, and this gets quite literal.
White shepherd's master, the old man by the sea, who spoke with his youngest, who happened to be somewhat concerned by the change in his voice. Life isn't always a matter of choice.
Right, so taking you through the chorus and through the instrumental, the solo, so to speak. Again, we've kept it light, and the lyrics reflected exactly what happened on that day and on that phone call. And at the same time, I'm trying to convey a sense of peacefulness, um, because I don't view people's passing with deep sorrow and sadness per se. I tend to be more reflective, and I have a number of reasons for that, some of which I'll share in another vlog. But at the same time, there's a certain peacefulness or serenity that accompanies these massive life changes. Again, I'm not saying I don't feel sadness or I wouldn't be terribly upset. I mean, imagine I don't want to imagine, but if one of our sons were to pass or something like that, or tragic accidents, tragedies, of course, do happen. Um, but rather, it's in, as I say, the philosophical side of this, of course, is that it's an inevitable feature of our existence, of our lived existence here. And I am, as I've mentioned in another vlog, grateful for every day that I have, not just in terms of my own life, but I'm grateful for the many people that I've had the privilege of knowing over the years. And of course, we ideally could say that about our parents, and I would say that about my parents as well. Um, Even though, of course, we had our disagreements, and again, some of you will know of the particularly serious incident that I had with my father, but that's not how I remember my father. That's an incident. That's a fact of our long lives together. But instead, I tend to focus on or remember the positives, and I especially remember the last 7 years of life. He still had his problems. He still had his issues. He lived alone on the Chesapeake Bay. Uh, he had the White Shepherd, Pawnee, White Shepherd's master. You saw that line in the song. Um, but on the other hand, he kind of accepted me, certainly, for who I was. I was quite different than him and than my other siblings in many respects. So we actually had a great relationship for the remaining 7 years. That picture, by the way, there's a photo at the very beginning of the of the video, the music video, and that's the last photo I had of him and me. It was literally exactly 3 weeks to the day. It was 3 weeks, 3 Sundays before, and so we had a kind of a fun pose there of him holding his, kind of a semi wrestling hold. Obviously not really, but it's just kind of a goofy picture of the two of us together, and he's got his pipe, that ubiquitous or omnipresent pipe, in his hand as well. So okay, so now we're gonna carry on with the rest of the song and tell the rest of the story.
Misty eyed moments, laughter remain, bathed in the sorrow, baptized in pain. Life carries on as the living revive the memory of those who have passed through our lives. One Sunday morning, the old man by the sea held his last conversation, where he struggled to be strong in resolve. Weak and his voice, life isn't always a matter of choice.
Okay, so there you have it. We added, or Caleb, I should say, CX Violet added a little bit of strings there, string arrangement, so that fills out the song a bit. But otherwise, it's just myself, my voice, the guitar, the acoustic guitar, and his bass guitar underneath. And yeah, so that's called The Old Man by the Sea, because that's how my father sort of self-effacingly or jokingly referred to himself. It was a bit of a play on Hemingway, too, who he quite liked as an author, on one of Hemingway's classic novels. So, again, just slight change in the wording there. But yeah, so he passed, as I say, just shy of his 72nd birthday. And the remainder of that song tells not only what happened in terms of his actual passing, but it's also a bit of a philosophical reflection on the nature and meaning of our lives. And in this case, or one of the core messages is that the fact that we, as the survivors, and we who are here, we who are continuing this conversation, if you're watching this vlog, you're obviously alive. And we're all carrying with us the memories of those who have passed through our lives. And that's something that we can treasure and we can value and we can share with others. So, just as we pass on our cultural knowledge, the technology, how to do things, how to live successfully in this rugged environment in the world that we live in, we also, of course, are passing along our memories, um, the, the shared remembrances of those who have played such an important part in our lives. And this is my way of, and I mean, we all have different ways that we remember people and different ways to honor them. And for me, music is an important way to express myself and to share the ideas and the emotions, the thoughts and feelings that I have. And in this case, the remembrance of my late father, Joseph Eugene Mikowski. I thought it was always kind of curious because I ended up being Joseph Mikowski and Joseph Henry Mikowski, named after my father and after my grandfather, Henry Hanna. Uh, but I always thought it was kind of interesting because there were three boys before me in our family and then two girls, and nobody was named Joseph until they stuck the label on me. So my dad's name was Joseph, and I ended up being the Joseph in the family. Go figure. All right, well, that's it for today. I won't comment further. I'll let you hopefully reflect on the song and the meaning, and hope you enjoyed it. And if you do, make sure you click like and subscribe if you haven't already, and definitely check out the songs on Spotify or Apple Music, or if you want to buy the album, I'll include the links below. All right. So that's it for today. And as ever, may you and yours continue to create peace in your lives and nurture love in your heart. Until next time, bye bye.